I'm your host, Sarah Baus, and welcome to Attainable Podcast. Hi, guys, and welcome back to the Attainable Podcast. I am so glad you're here. Listen, everyone's a special episode. I know I say it every time. Don't worry. I probably will never get more original with our intros ever. But any of you on YouTube or any of you watching through the Spotify video, do you notice anything different? Because this destroyed my office and took 3 years off my life to do. The video should be a lot more clear. And we've got a new mic. I've got my sign up. I definitely couldn't find thumbtacks, so I nailed this sign into the wall with a flashlight because I didn't feel like going to find a hammer. We were big scrappy today putting all this together. And we have a very special guest to, I guess, commemorate the new setup. Today, I'm talking with my friend Jared, and we're going to talk about music. We're going to talk about, you guys know how much I love talking about like taking your own path and really defining your own way and taking the road that usually seems a little bit wacky and curvy and nonsensical, but ends you end up in just the right place. Well, Jared is a perfect testament to that. And he's got a really, really, really cool story. So, Jared, thanks for coming on and being I feel like it's almost like the Olympic opener. You're like carrying the torch for the new setup.
I'm pumped. First of all, thank you so much for having me. I mean, I've never been on a podcast. I've really never shared my story with anyone other than my family. So I'm pretty excited to talk about it and hopefully inspire some people to, live out their dreams, take some risks, and know that it's all going to work out.
Yeah. When we're friends, but I didn't know the extent of your story until we really got talking. And I was like, oh my gosh, like this 100% has to be shared so people know what we're talking about. Can you give a brief introduction to who you are and what you do and kind of what got you here?
Sure. Awesome. So I am Jared, as you have told everybody. But I'm like, I don't know. I've prided myself my entire life on taking an alternative road, kind of just like paving my own way. If someone says something is done this way, I will always 100% of the time try and find another way to do it, no matter what. So that's worked out for me before. It hasn't worked out for me before, but I just have learned over the years to like trust my gut and my intuition, and everything will fall into place. Life and the universe is constantly giving you signs of things that you just kind of have to follow and have blind faith in and trust, and everything does really happen for a reason. If you set your intentions and your mind to something, you can really achieve it. And that was instilled to me by my mother, growing up, that you can really do whatever you want. And she's always been super supportive. My dad's been super supportive, and I never really had any objection to anything I wanted to do. So they made sure I stayed on a good path, didn't go too far in the deep end, because sometimes I tried to veer off, but they always knew that, if I followed my passion, I'd be able to do something that I wanted and achieve greatness. Still in the process of achieving greatness. It's not like a clear cut, oh, one day you've achieved greatness, it's a spectrum and it's a continual thing. And it's just a lifestyle of being comfortable with being uncomfortable, I'd say.
Yeah. No, I are you do you have siblings or are you an only child?
I am a severe only child.
You are a severe only child. I was wondering, because it's always interesting to hear when people talk about their family dynamics, and I think there are stereotypes, but I just think it does put perspective. So I think that's super cool. So can you, before we go into more about what you do, can you talk a little bit more about how your mom really instilled that in you?
Yeah, definitely. She actually would tell me, I remember a quote growing up, there's a good road and a bad road. Every time I would make a mistake, Jared, there's a good road and there's a bad road. You can go down whichever one you want, and kind of left it up to like my decision to have a good consciousness. And so anytime I would go down the bad road too far, I'd kind of just like close my eyes and think of my mom telling me that, or, my dad telling me, just always instilling good values in me. My dad would tell me as from a young kid, be nice to, everybody, don't make fun of kids at school. So, they tried to just instill good values in me. And I took those to heart. And actually a specific example is when I was in college, which I don't want to jump ahead too far in the story, but I was trying to follow my passion. And after 3 years, my mom suggested to me, why don't you take a hiatus from school and kind of see where this goes? And she was the one footing the bill. So,
Wow,
you
she
know,
was the one who
yeah,
told you to make the jump.
yeah. And she doesn't seem to remember it that way, but I do. So, I get the
That's
Jewish
yeah.
mother guilt now. But she's very proud of what I've been able to accomplish, as am I. But yeah, parents 100% had total involvement in my career decisions, but left it up to me.
Interesting. Okay, so all right, yeah, let's backtrack a little bit. So what do you do now? And then kind of what got you there? When we spoke, I think it started a little bit before college.
Yeah, it's so interesting. So I kind of live a double life. My passion is music. I work for Mood Swing, which is the company I'm wearing now. It's a management company founded by one of my mentors. I've known him since I was 16 years old. I interned for him before I even knew I wanted to be in music, kind of maintain that relationship. And it's come to fruition now in a grander scheme, or in a grander scale, I would say. But my other full-time job, really 9 to 5, 10 to 6, whatever you call it. I work at a marketing agency with you,
Yeah, that's
and
how we met.
that's how we met. And it took me a while to I also have so much energy that I can't just like focus on one thing, so I'll be bored.
Yeah.
And so I think that is also what kept me out of trouble, is like, and kept me on a good path, is basically just filling out my time with things that were beneficial to myself. And it took so long to balance those two things, because I am also very entrepreneurial at heart. I did go to school for entrepreneurship and business at Northeastern. And I've tried to start so many businesses without really knowing what I was doing. And the one thing I've learned over the past like 10, 15 years, I would say, is jumping all over the place is really not going to get you anywhere. You have to kind of like stick it through. Anyone I've seen get anywhere successful in life has put a good 5 to 10 years into one thing. I would say 7 years is like the average, when I see people really rising to the success in their industry. So just having that patience has always been hard for me. So I've been jumping around, but in the past 5 to about 6, 7 years, I've been kind of settling into what I want to do. I've been in marketing, dually in marketing, digital marketing, growth marketing, and the music industry on the management side for, music has been 10, 15 years, but marketing about 5, 7 years now. And I've balanced this double life. Yeah, it's tough, but it's doable. You just have, and I'm married. I have a social life. It's not all I do. I don't wake up and work every single day.
Yeah.
9 to 12, like some people, 9 a.m. to 12 a.m. like some people do in the banking industry. You know, work is work, but why not make it fun?
Yeah. No, we've had a lot of people on the podcast, and I feel very fortunate to know many people with like they do kind of feel like they live double lives or even triple lives. Like they've got multiple things going on. They've realized that they can, like, a career doesn't just have to be one thing, nor does your passion. Do your passions have to be one thing? And they've figured out how to blend side hustles, or, not side hustles, but like, main gigs with their side hustles, or like whatever. So that's extremely, I think it's just a really cool way of looking at work, honestly. And I think COVID really made it so we redefined what work looked like. I think that made a lot of people change. I think it changed mindsets. It changed mindsets on like, is this where I want to be? I think it made a lot of people get scrappy, which I think is usually a good thing. A lot comes from that. But so your passion, I guess your main passion, or your longest relationship passion, is music. How did you get started in that?
So you actually just said something really great about kind of morphing and having a passion, but I'm grounded in music as my passion, but what does that mean? So like I originally wanted to be a producer, make beats, have rappers rap on my songs. And I still, as a hobby, make some music on the side. But what I realized is that, if that's not something I'm willing to 1000% commit to and be the absolute best in the world at, which at the time I wasn't, then I can still do things in music that I'm passionate about and maybe approach the business side a little bit more. So when like I said, when I was 16, I interned for the guy who I work for now, who's the founder of Mood Swing, and maintained that relationship. Interned again for him when I was 18. Then I really realized I kind of wanted to be in music. At that point, I was producing for like 4 years, and I was going off to college, and I thought I was going to be a producer. So I ended up meeting this rapper, and we worked together. He was not a big name, and I put in about 3 or 4 years with him as a manager because I had to shift strategies. Because when I met him, he was like a much better producer than I was. Like, he made way better beats, and it kind of was like my light bulb moment where I was like, okay, am I gonna like be a producer, or I'm in college learning business, like maybe there's something else I can do for this. So at that point, I decided to shift strategies, and I literally just bought management books, took up a minor in music industry, started reading, getting all A's in music industry class. And, I was doing much better in music than I was in all my other classes, which is a clear sign of my passion. And then I met another artist. So I started managing 2 artists, and we ended up actually signing a co-management deal with the Black Eyed Peas managers. And so
No way.
Yeah, it was great. So through connections, just my dad was always a dude out in the streets with friends, and he actually ended up connecting me with like some music people.
Networking and connections are so like I think they're still underrated, even though that they're talked about. I think that people get really annoyed with it. Are you a Hamilton fan?
I mean, not specifically, but I actually like the Broadway play
Yeah,
Hamilton. Yeah, I haven't seen it yet, but I've just talked about it this weekend. That's so weird that you just mentioned
Jared.
that.
Oh
Yeah.
my God, it's literally so good. Like, so there's a song called "The Room Where It Happened." Literally, I mean, they rap the whole story of Hamilton. Like, you really need
I had no
to.
idea.
Oh my God.
I
Okay,
had no
Jared.
idea.
Jared, literally, like, you need to watch it. And here's the thing, watch it. Like, the Disney one is really, really good. It is. I know that you are in New York, so like you can actually go see it. But I will say I would probably recommend anybody watch the Disney one first, just so you can have the subtitles, because it makes a difference. Because they're rapping so fast and they're telling a story. Like, you have to keep along, whatever. But there's this song called "The Room Where It Happens," and so that just reminded me, like, networking. I feel like everybody gets really dogged down about like, oh, you have to be like in the room where it happens. You have to be making these under the table deals. Like, you have to have all these connections, and they get like really bogged down immediately saying like, oh, well, I don't have that. I don't have any of that. Like, I don't know anybody. And I'm like, I promise
That's
you do. Like,
that's where
have
the
you heard of
scrappiness.
Facebook?
Yeah, that's where the scrappiness comes in too. I mean, like,
Yeah.
everything I've done is based on networking, and I mean, I have some really good stories to share, but it kind of like dives into what I was doing later that I was going to share. But
Yeah.
just let me just give one
Yeah. I
example.
don't mean to derail you. Keep going.
Oh, it's all good. When I first started, I had no connections when I was managing that first rapper. So we would just go out. I literally would. I actually, you're right. I DM'd someone. I remember exactly what I did. I was in Boston, Massachusetts. I found the guy who promoted and threw all the rap shows there. I DM'd him. I told him I wanted my artist to open for him or for some of his shows. And he said, if you can sell tickets, then sure. So I bought 50 tickets with my own money, and
No, you didn't.
yeah, and I continued to do that for like months, which was not a good financial decision. Like, I was taking all the money that my parents would send me to like eat, and I was eating very little, and then I would like spend money on tickets that just to get my artist to perform.
Yeah.
So, but that's not the scrappy thing I was talking about, but that's pretty scrappy. But so I've used weed as a tool in the rap industry. I literally would bring a joint every single place I went with me, because most of the people were smoking backstage, and if they didn't have weed and you were the guy with the weed, then they want to talk to you.
You are
So
literally so smart. Of course. Of course, if you're in the industry. Like, you're literally, you know what they value. And you said, I got it.
yeah, exactly. So you just want to add value. I mean, how
Yeah.
think of ways we can add value. Okay, everyone's smoking weed. I'll bring some weed. Like, one time I
That's
remember
hysterical.
I left a venue because I didn't have weed, and a rapper's manager, like a bigger rapper's manager, told me that they wanted to smoke after the show. So I literally left the show, bought weed, and came back. and ended up getting a free verse from one of his rappers on a song, where usually you have to pay like thousands of dollars for a verse, but it all happened
Wait, what
organically
does that
because
mean?
like a verse, like they rapped on a song with my artist because of the connection
Oh,
I made. Yeah. I got basically a free song where you have to
oh my
pay.
gosh.
Yeah, yeah, from smoking a joint with their manager, like backstage, that I didn't have when I got there. And I didn't just let me having no weed turn out in me not smoking with him. Like I did everything I needed to do to make that
Yeah.
happen.
Not
And
that
so
this like matters, but is it legal there? Was
now
it
it,
legal there? It was not, man. Gotta do what you gotta do, man.
yeah, I don't recommend doing illegal things to make your way into the industry,
But
but now that
but
now
but
that it's
like
legal,
this how it's listen, this is what it looks like in the room where it happens.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it was I think it was decriminalized. It was a slap on the wrist. It wasn't like
Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
yeah, at this point, like that, we don't need to get into all that. But
But
smart
if you take the
cookie.
weed out of it, I mean, I have another similar story when I was on tour with artists. I was smoking. This is very embarrassing to admit, but at the time I smoked cigarettes, and I do not condone that. But I was smoking cigarettes, and a lot of the artists would come up to me and ask if they could have a cigarette, and then they didn't like the cigarettes I was smoking. So I found out which cigarettes they liked, and I switched to smoking those cigarettes so that every time they came up to me, they would want to talk to me, and I made a lot of connections that way. So,
Yeah.
I mean, and all my connections didn't come from smoking something,
No, I'm
but
sure. I'm sure. I think like the general, messaging, whatever the medium is like I think actually the switching cigarettes thing is interesting because I think a lot of people they talk about like the fake it till you make it thing. And that's a very practical example of like, be who you are, who you look up to, like be your own person, of course, but if there's practices that they're doing, and or things that you can adopt to, usually it's to better your lifestyle, which I'm assuming cigarettes do not do. But, I feel like all encompassing, it's just really having the grit to say, okay, this is who I want to be. So I'm going to fold myself into this narrative. I'm going to get myself into these circles. I'm going to push my way in because that's ultimately what's going to get you there the fastest.
exactly. And then the other thing is, I mean, that's how you get started, but I mean, they say that it's who you know, but obviously you have to get to know people first, but then it's maintaining relationships, and like
Yeah.
that stuff doesn't happen fast. It's not like you can't fake a friendship, right? You can't fake 5 years of knowing someone and trusting
No, and
them.
a lot of people freaking try.
Yeah.
They really do. Networking events sometimes seem like BS. Like nothing comes from a fake relationship. Like people can smell that shit from a mile away.
And the other thing is, it's a very, 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 very small world, and you never know 10 years from now who you just interacted with, who they're going to be. They could be the head of the next biggest deal that you're trying to close, and they could be someone's shoe cleaner right now. Like you have no idea who you're dealing with, and you got to treat everybody with respect and just the way you'd want to be treated. I mean, I know it sounds cliche, but it's so true.
Yeah.
You don't want to bridges because you never know who's who.
Yeah, no, totally. Okay, so we derailed a little bit, but so I want to make sure that we get the full story because I think hearing the journey is also really important just for perspective and because we're freaking nosy. So what I remember us like derailing from is like you were taking these classes because we have not established really when you took the leap.
Timeline. Okay, so
Yes.
time.
Yes.
So I took 3.5 years of classes out of about 4.5 to 5 years because it was a program in the school called co-op. I went to Northeastern, and you take 3 semesters and you work for a company 3 times basically. And it could be the same company, but it could be different companies. So the first 2 times I did some bullshit thing where I just worked for some random companies that I didn't care about. And the third time I decided to co-op for myself in the music industry. So at this point, I already had a co-management deal with the Black Eyed Peas managers through a connection that I had. And I then left school in, I would say, December December to go on my break to work for myself. And in June, okay, this is crazy. So the artist I was managing, we got a call from the radio DJ in his city in Connecticut that said,
And this is the smaller artist that you
this is
met.
no, this is, I skipped over, the smaller artist left me because the bigger artist got bigger and he
Okay.
cut ties with me, and because I wasn't putting in enough work to him,
Okay.
which was, he
Fair.
also decided to be an insurance agent, and I can't really put you on tour if you're an insurance. So the bigger artists started getting bigger. We landed a co-management deal with the Black Eyed Peas managers, and around the same time, totally unrelated, Drake put out a contest to go on tour with him to open for him. Drake, Meek Mill, 2 Chainz, Waka Flocka Flame, French Montana, and J. Cole. And then my artist, Jitta, at the time was my artist. We're just friends now. But so we went on, we basically applied, so the DJ in Connecticut contacted us and said, you should apply for this tour.
Yeah.
So we filled out a profile, and luckily we had been working his socials. We had a lot of Twitter followers. His YouTube had at least 50,000 views on a video. And this was before, YouTube was that big. It was 2012. It was still big, but 50,000 views was still decent, not so easy thing to get. And there was no paid yet. So we submitted the profile. It definitely was the most professional looking profile out of all the ones I saw on the platform. And I would say, I don't remember the exact timeline, but a few weeks or months later, I get a phone call that says, want to let you know you're a finalist. We'll be letting the winner know in the next week. We're kind of freaking out. So I get a phone call about a week later. Hey, it's a FaceTime. And they FaceTime me, and we're like, I just want to let you know that, like, because I lived with my artist at the time, so it was the two of us, and I was like, I just want to let you know that you guys won. You have to pack up. You're going on tour tomorrow. Get 8 people together. You're going on tour for 30 days around the country in a tour bus with all these artists, and you're going to be in the same lineup as them. You're going to be traveling with them, everything, hanging out with them. And this is like the biggest break that anyone could ever wish for, a starting
You said
artist.
Drake, 2 Chainz, like all of them.
It was like all of these artists' first huge stadium tour.
Oh
like
my God.
it was 50,000 people, like 30 to 50,000 people in a show. It was insane. And we did like 20 to 30 shows. So we probably touched 500,000 or more people, whatever the number was. It was pretty insane. So we did that. And then here's where the networking comes in though. Like, we were on tour, and if I had known what I do now and had the access to what I do now, I could have capitalized more on this tour. But we were also in our young 20s, like on tour with Drake.
Yeah, you're like, look, I'm just trying to live my life. I'm just trying to vibe. Like, I'm just trying to get through. Like, we got 30 days of crazy. Just
yeah. We were trying to like fight off girls from our tour bus. We weren't worried about like we thought we made it. This is where the networking comes in. So I would go, and every single show I would be friends with the tour manager, Drake's tour manager, who is still my friend today. I'm not gonna like get into how we were. It was also, there was a lot of bringing things when needed. It wasn't necessarily things to smoke, but just being a helping hand.
Yeah. In any environment, just being a solid person to that is adding value, is being friendly, is helping out. Like, that always goes a long way.
Exactly. And so he was Drake's tour manager, and I stayed in touch with him. A year later, fast forward, still working with my artist, I moved to LA, because actually this is a really good example of how back to what we were talking about earlier, how my mom was supportive. We were on a walk, and I was telling her, Mom, I don't really know, what am I doing? Like, I'm trying to do this music thing. I'm not happy in New York. And she literally just said, why don't you move to LA? And I was like, really? I can do that? And so she allowed me to go move. I stayed on my friend's couch for a couple of weeks. I didn't have a job or income, so she let me use her credit card, and I basically texted my contact from Drake's tour, his tour manager, and I said, do you have a job? And long story short, I can't really talk about the job, but I got my dream job working for a big artist, and it kind of just like solidified my dreams in the music industry. It was a very dedicated job, so I had to kind of like lose my individual management stuff. I just didn't have time to do it, but I maintained a really good relationship with Jada, my artist, and we kind of both built our separate ways. Then after I did that for about a year, I was like, I kind of just lived out my dream in music, and I thought I was sick of it. I thought I was done with it, because once you accomplish the thing that you've wanted to do for the exact person you've wanted to do it for, it's like,
Yeah.
what else is next, you know?
Yeah. What happens when you reach what
Yeah,
you thought was the top?
yeah, exactly. So kind of just like completely shifted gears, and I used that really cool experience on my resume. Keep in mind, I didn't have a college degree at this point. I had almost 4 years of college experience and knowledge and everything,
That
but
was
I
going to be
didn't
my
have.
question. I was like, wait, so did you ever finish?
I'm still on hiatus.
Still on hiatus. We're just taking a break.
um yeah, I've gotten my degree from life, I think.
There you
I
go.
I actually I think I've had such amazing experiences. I would never change a single thing.
Yeah.
um
No, that
but
just goes to show.
yeah, yeah. So I shifted gears. I decided to work for a renewable energy tech hardware startup where I was the fourth employee at the company.
Whoa, that's a hard like turn.
Yeah, no
What made
experience.
you do that?
Like I said, it was probably just I wanted to do the complete opposite of what I was doing, because
Yeah.
let's reset. Let's set new goals. Let's try and achieve something crazy in another industry. So I did that. We ended up growing to 20 employees. I ended up with a patent under my name as an inventor for harvesting energy from a vehicle, which like vehicular motion, which was pretty cool. Um, I did that, and then about 3.5 years into that, I started getting like the music itch again, and I was like doing music on the side while I was supposed to be doing that. Like I was literally at work in my office alone doing music 9 to 5 when I was supposed to be doing the other stuff. And then I was like, I clearly want to do music. So that's when I started talking to my former intern mentor from Mood Swing. And honestly, that was in maybe 2016, 2017, something like that. And I've just been working with him gradually in a capacity since then. Now it's called part-time, but it's full-time. The other thing is, when you're doing a passion, it doesn't seem like work. So if I get a text at 10 p.m. while I'm out to dinner, or if I have to, write an email, it doesn't suck as much as if it was something that I hated doing,
Yeah.
because there's ultimately like a passion, and B, a larger goal in mind. So yeah, I mean, in a short nutshell, that's the trajectory I took. And if you want to like fast forward to today, I basically used my networking and my stories and my personality to get myself to where I am. I'm extremely happy with working full-time in the music industry, full-time in the marketing industry, and my next goal is to combine the two. So they obviously cross paths all the time, and I'm just trying to learn everything I can from the amazing company that you and I work for, and apply it to everything I want to do in life.
Yeah. That's awesome. Okay, so thank you for taking us through that. I've got obviously several questions. So, when I was doing like my career hops, I don't think that I was quite as like focused as you. I was more like, my life is a mess and everything's ruined, and then sort of fell into something. But something that really plagued me all the time was labels and like job titles. And when so I was a chemist and then I quit because it was literally atrocious and sucking every bit of life out of me. But then I really didn't have a plan, and so I read marketing books and I didn't know what was going on, and I was working at TJ Maxx, and the question I most feared was somebody asking me, "So what do you do?" And I like really needed, like, in my mind, especially graduating college, and I was like top of my class, and I was like, put on this pedestal a little bit at this school. It was very small, and I'm very grateful that for that experience, but it made me really attribute labels and like what you do with worth. And so like when I was a chemist, I was able to say, "Oh, I'm a research and development chemist." And everybody thought, "Ooh, oh, that's so cool. You're so smart." Like, but when I was working at TJ Maxx, I like then when I left that, it made me completely lose who I was because I attached it to what I did for work, which it clearly is not like the regular answer to that question. But did you ever find yourself like grasping for labels? Or if not, like how did you wrap your mind around like what you were doing? Because when we were, you're talking about this timeline, you can see it from, hindsight's 2020. But I find a lot of people that like they'll tell you when you're in it, it doesn't feel that organized. It doesn't feel like one step in front of the other. It feels like tumbling and you're not really sure which way is up or down. What was your experience in that?
It's so interesting because like I think it goes back to what I was also talking about before. There's no defining moment of like you've achieved success. And so in the moment, I was searching for I always wanted to be there now. I wanted to be where I wanted to be now. And one of my other mentors in music had told me a quote that it's not about the pot of gold, it's about the journey. And looking back, I didn't think I was successful during the times that all these things happened, but like it would be hard to argue that those aren't incredible successes looking back now.
Mhm.
And yeah, I think it's just like you said, in the moment, you're searching for something that the grass is
It feels
always
like you're
greener.
constantly chasing.
Exactly. And so that's probably why you and I hopped around so much. And like I said, it takes 5 to 10, maybe more years to achieve success in something. There's a plant that there's a plant that exists that you have to water every single day. Seed, you have to water the seed every day for like 5 years before it sprouts. And I think that's like one of the most interesting things that nature would do that, because like who would not give up after 4.5 years of watering this thing? Like, and so the fact that that happens, like it really does take time.
That's
And
beautiful.
yeah, it's awesome, right? So I always
Yeah.
think about that. I'm like, well, why would this take 5 years? Well, why would a seed take 5 years? Like other ones take one day, but you can't compare that seed because actually that seed is the most beautiful flower you'll ever see in your life, you know? So you can have a crappy flower that blooms in 5 days, or you can wait and, wait for your real pot of gold. But yeah, I mean, it's hard. It's hard when you're in the moment to recognize that.
Wow. I forget that well, I'm not forgetting since there are a million behind you, but I do forget that you are such a plant dad.
I am a plant dad. I was going to wear my plant dad hat, but I thought my state of gratitude hat was more appropriate.
You have one of the most sick hat collections I think I've ever seen, truly.
Thank you. I love hats. I mean, maybe because I'm partially going bald, but
I
also
really
cool.
don't see your head very often. Like, if I'm being honest, I think I've seen it once. Like, actually, I think I literally have seen the top of your head once.
Do I even have the top of my head?
I don't think so. I think if you take the hat off, it's actually just one flat, like, thing, almost like somebody just sliced right through.
You'll never know.
You never know. So can you talk about, was there ever a time in this journey where you like almost gave up? Did you ever have like moments where you're like, yeah, I think I'm really gonna throw in the towel?
Like anytime something gets hard, my my first reaction is like, I can't fucking do this.
I
But
can't fucking do
um,
this.
yeah, like the amount of times I probably said in the past month, like, I don't know if I could do this, but you just keep sticking it through. You only fail if you quit. Like That's literally the only way to fail. And so I don't think people realize that. Like, there is no such thing as failure unless you stop. Like,
Yeah.
you can always pick yourself back up and go.
Okay, well, question. Little challenge you there. Um, do you think, like, how do you know when to pivot, when to quote quit? Because when I was even when I was accepting the job at No Good, when I was had the opportunity to then leave my job at TJ Maxx and go out on my own, when I, was leaving chemistry, like I over wow, now that I'm thinking about it, I quit a lot. Just, every time you move, you're technically leaving something behind. And especially for whatever reason, when I think it was because like I was going off on my own and freelancing, and so you don't see that as legitimate because it's you. When I was moving from working at TJ Maxx to working on my own, similar salary by the way, I was like, I called my friend and I was bawling, crying, and I was like, "Oh, I don't want to be a quitter. I don't want to, I'm working hard, and like they said, I could be maybe manager." And which also, fuck that noise. I mean, not that any path is wrong, but I have some words for the retail industry anyway. But I was like, "Oh, I don't want to be like a quitter." And she looked at me. She was like, "Sarah, you've dreamed about this for as long as I've known you. Why are you crying?" And I was like, I don't fucking know.
I think
Do you think, when do you know? When do you know that it's time to move? When do you know when you could be a quitter?
so. I think that for me, at least, I decide to move on from something when I recognize that there's no opportunity for growth in what I'm doing, or what I'm doing is not serving my greater goal and happiness.
Yeah.
Happiness is a lot of it. I measure things on vibes. Is this vibing with my energy?
Yeah. No, don't underestimate a vibe. I truly think that if you take vibes seriously, you can call it vibes, you can call it intuition, you can call it your gut, like whatever, but it'll lead you true.
Yeah. So I don't think I don't think pivoting is quitting necessarily. Like,
I agree.
yeah, I think it's shifting strategies. I would say it's arguable that I quit music when I went into renewable energy, but ultimately you
You can always
can
make your way
see that,
back.
yeah, it came back. And
Yeah.
so I would be regretful if I quit and wasn't in it at this point. So if you have a passion, there's a reason for that. If something brings you joy and happiness, there's a reason for that. And you can replace it with things that you think are easier or better, or a lot of it's imposter syndrome. Like you said, you don't think that you're capable of doing this, but that's just all in your head.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that a lot of it, like I really changed. I mean, of course, like things my mindset's changed over the years or whatever, but I've really gained like a mindset of like why not try? Like why not at least try? Like I haven't spoken about it on the podcast, but like I'm going to be submitting to some modeling agencies, and I'm also am taking French lessons, and I'm signing up for acting lessons so I could get some film agencies, like, and it's just things that have an interest in, I want to pursue, and so it's like why not try? Like why not and this is like side hobbies and interests, and that can maybe go into something, but it's not, you know I'm not the idea of being so scared that you don't start, like you don't take the first step, is mind-boggling to me. I'm like, this is life, this is all, and my mom is really really good at having this mentality. She's like, I need you to buck the fuck up, and also stop being so dramatic. Like she will say that, she's like, Sarah, stop being so dramatic. It is not, it's this is like, this is life. Just have fun, work hard, be a good person. If you want to try, try. If you want to do it. If you fall on your face, get back up. Like, nothing, it's not going to kill you. So why not at least go for it and see what happens? It's just time spent.
There's two types of fear. There's the fear. This I learned actually from, I learned two really important things from the management book that I bought in college when I decided to become a manager. One is luck is when careful preparation meets opportunity. So if you are
Yeah.
prepared for something and opportunity comes up, that is also seen as luck a lot of the times, which has happened to me several times.
Yes.
The other thing is there's two types of fear. There's the fear of failure, which everyone's just scared that they're going to fail. But then there's the fear of success. Like, if I succeed, can I even be that person? Like, do I even want to be that person?
Yeah.
And that's like the imposter syndrome. So for fear of failure, a lot of things I've seen, like, people put themselves out there on purpose in situations where they're going to experience rejection. So like, or people looking at them weird, uncomfortable situations. I think earlier in the podcast, I said you have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. And that's something so true to so many aspects of life, but especially when you're trying something new or something scary. So I've seen people like bring a yoga mat into the middle of the street and lie on the street, and people walk around them just so that people look at them like, what the hell are you doing? And they get used to that feeling.
Yeah.
um there's a lot of ways to get over those fears.
Yeah. When I reference it's actually a lot, like, I for myself, like, in my mind. I don't know if I've really talked about it on the podcast before, but when I was 16, I decided I want to start dance. And you don't start dance at 16. Like, everybody around me who had they'd been doing dance since they were 5 and or whatever. And so I told my mom. She was like, well, you got babysitting money, like, you can pay for it. So I paid for my own lessons. I remember like handing over, like, I'd walk into dance class and, like, I'd have to go to the front desk and be like, hey sir, like, it's a month. And I was like, okay. And I had to, like, slide my cash over or whatever. um but I went to my local, like, dance studio, and they're like, okay, well, you're going to be in a beginner's class. And I was like, that's okay. So I walk into class, uh and I'm in, like, I had to wear, like, tights and a ballet leotard or whatever, and I'm with a bunch of 8-year-olds, literally 8-year-olds. There's one particular 8-year-old named Abigail. She's very bossy, and she used to tell me what I was doing wrong, and, like, very sweet, whatever. It was Abigail had been doing it since she was 2 months old. So I would take Abigail's advice. But I remember I was like, that was the first time where I really said, like, I don't care. I just want to do it. Like, I just want to dance. And I don't care that I am literally 2 feet above these people. I don't care that there is an 8-year-old named Abigail correcting my form. Like, I don't care. I just love doing it. And 100%, for anybody asking, yes, I was in the recital. Yes, it did look a little funny when we actually this was my ballet class, where it was the year that the Moscow Ballet Company came into town. And, like, they were touring, and whatever city they'd tour in, they'd partner with an academy or, like, a studio there. And you for the Nutcracker, and that studio would be like the Angels, or there's, like, little parts that they would, every city that I was assuming, every city that they went to, they just, like, partner with the nearest studio, and then we'd be the little angels or plum fairies or who the fuck ever. So yeah, there was this point, and they had to get a special costume
Oh my God, like from the
for me.
big
We
ball store.
Yeah, and I mean, I was too, imagine, like, a 16-year-old and an 8-year-old, and I was the head of the line. So, because, like, where else are they gonna put me? And so we, like, ballerina tiptoed out onto the stage. This is the Moscow Ballet. People are paying tickets to see these people, and you just see this giant girl, and then these ducklings behind her. She's in a giant version of their angel costume, very clearly. Like, one of these things is not like the other. I just shuffled out there and did my piece, and one of the Moscow ballerinas growled at me. But that was, like, the first of many times where I was like, yeah, I don't care that this looks stupid. Like, I want to do
And
it,
those
so I'm
things
gonna do
build
it.
character. And look where you are now. You're comfortable in front of cameras. You have people who look up to you and follow you. And maybe that wouldn't have been the case if you hadn't been
Yeah.
in front of a million people with ducklings behind you, you know?
With things behind it, yeah. Well, okay, so for anybody who is, maybe, they're younger, they're in college, maybe in high school, or even maybe older, and they're still trying to figure out, like, what they want to do, who they want to be, they feel lost, and they're just not sure where to go next. What's your advice for them?
Well, what do you like to do in your free time? If you had no responsibilities, what would you like to do? What would you feel comfortable spending every day doing if it wasn't a job? If you were just a billionaire and you could just do whatever you want for the rest of the day? because I mean, everyone will say, "Oh, I want to just go work, chill on a beach," but yeah, that gets boring after a while. So
Yeah.
realistically, like, what do you want to spend your time doing that's gonna advance your productivity or knowledge or skill set? What's fun? I think that's a good place to start. And then you get into, okay, I've identified this thing that I love, and what does that mean? How do I meet people that are like-minded? And now they have it easier than we did. I mean, I'm not like that old, but like, you know how much technology has advanced in the past 5, 10
Yeah.
years. I didn't have Instagram until I think Instagram came out while we were on the Drake tour. I think I remember my artist being like, "Oh, there's this app," and like I was posting like the weirdest pictures because I had no idea what was going on. But yeah, things have become a lot easier and thus also a lot harder, more saturated, more competitive, but there's a lot of creative ways to find your passion and capitalize on it. And I mean, also just reach out to people. Don't be afraid to like ask people, because there's a lot of people who are 10 years older than you who want to help, and who, I mean, like, I would love if someone asked me, "Hey, how'd you do this?" Um, you might not want to ask for handouts, but advice people are always happy to give.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. And I think that people like they'll hear like what do you like to do in your free time, or even what did you want to be when you were a kid? And they really brush that off, and I'm like, "No, don't, because 10 years from now you're going to look back and laugh, because I would have never guessed that I would be where I am now." And I don't, I know this is in the end, but I remember wanting to be on Disney Channel. I remember wanting to perform. I remember wanting to be in front of a camera like I loved. This is all summing up to I'm an attention whore. But I like am looking at like what I do now. I'm looking at TikTok. I'm looking at, the podcast. I'm looking at the fact like wanting to be more in film. I'm just like, there's a common theme here. And anybody who knows me is like, duh. But I'm like, I can look back at photos of me. Can look back at videos of me when I was a kid. And I'm like, I could literally have predicted this if I
I
had
mean,
just listened.
we're all still kids,
We're
like,
all still kids. I think like everybody, if you find, adults who are like, yes, I'm super happy like where I am, I'm not, I don't, I'm not gonna say like I don't think anybody's at their ending. Nobody's like really made it. Even Oprah's like trying to go bigger, better, whatever. There's never, it's you just keep going and then you die. But that was so morbid. But like, I don't think anybody's at there. Anybody, if you find it, anybody who's happy with where they are, I bet that they can connect some of that to their interests as a kid. I really truly believe that there's a connection there. So don't brush it off. Don't brush that advice off. Because you're gonna laugh at yourself later, as I did.
yeah, 100%. I mean, I think my first inkling of being interested in music was when I was like third. Actually, I was like 8 or 9. I had a Casio keyboard, and I remember like really loving. I would just like obsess over playing like my own stuff. I didn't want to learn music. I wanted to like figure it out on my own. That probably goes back to me being like an inherent rule breaker. But yeah, 8, I think I got my first Casio keyboard. 14, my friend told me he made beats and I learned how to do it. And so it was just a recurring theme that like I didn't.
Oh, it'll come back to you. It'll keep hitting
Yeah,
you in the face
it's
till
like,
you get it.
it just, life just keeps telling you. And if you can't identify it, just think of those times where like you were absolutely infatuated with something, and that's probably your passion.
Yeah. Ah, Jared, this was so good. Thank you so much
Or
for coming
refreshing.
on. Thank you for being so vulnerable and telling your story and being so transparent. And so if anybody wants to find you, connect with you, potentially reach out, get advice, whatever, where can they find you and follow your journey?
I would say Instagram is probably, I mean, I have a lot of accounts on TikTok that I'm trying
You
to like
do.
build different audiences. So I don't think you can get a really good idea of who I am from there. But all my music stuff I probably share on my Instagram. It's at Jared M. Glassman, JaredMGlassman. That's my handle for now. Who knows if that's going to be it forever. I've always been wanted to be called Pants. I don't know why I wanted to be called Pants for wearing cool pants.
What?
I always wanted a name. Like I wanted a like I don't know, like who's something in entertainment. There's always people always go by another name and
Like
alter ego.
Lady Gaga or whatever?
Yeah, Pants. I want to be Pants. So you can call.
Honestly, that's sick. Pants. My friend Pants. I'm
Maybe
putting you
that's
in
not.
my phone as Pants.
I hope that doesn't.
Do you want it with a Z or do you want it with an S?
I'll take an S. I'll take an
Okay.
S.
I'm
But
crying.
I hope that doesn't stick for the universe. And if it did, I wouldn't be upset. But yeah, call me Pants. Fuck it.
Call me Pants. Fuck it. Thank you so much, guys. If you enjoyed this episode, please go follow Jared. He's literally an amazing person and just one of the kindest humans I think I've ever met. So connect with him if you have questions. Thank you so much for being willing to answer those questions. And if you like this episode, share it on all your socials. Put it on your stories. Tag us. Tag Jared. We would love to shout you out. We're all friends here. And please go on to wherever you're listening, Spotify, Apple Music, whatever, and leave a rating and review. If you're on Apple Music, you can leave a rating and a review, like the words. Spotify hasn't really gotten there yet with the reviews, but they do have a rating. 5 stars is best because we're friends. Anything less, I question our friendship. But anyways, and go follow us on Instagram as well. Like I said, I said this a couple episodes ago, but like, guys, my TikTok audience and my Instagram audience is so unbalanced and is an insecurity of mine. So as my friend, please go over there, follow me, follow Jared, and follow the Attainable Podcast Instagram because we are bopping over there in case you haven't seen. I love you guys so much, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.